Okay, something to understand is that everyone's thoughts, their mind, they're completely different. More unique than a snowflake. The way someone thinks could never be replicated, ever. And that's because your brain has, I think it's maybe 10 billion different neurons, and each neuron's connected to 10,000 other ones. And every time you form a thought, every time you have an experience, a certain combination of each of them fires. And depending on how they fire and which ones fire together determines that thought process. So it's an infinite amount of possibilities, nearly. But the thing is that they fire depending on how you perceive them, not on what actually happens. So your brain filters out a ton of different information. If you're looking for your friend, then your brain filters out everything else and you're only going to see that friend. So now your memory of him is firing and firing and firing. So your brain limits a ton of information that's coming in, basically. But what you need to understand is that you can control how you think, and you can control that by experiencing the world as it is and not allowing your brain to filter out as much, and just experiencing everything how it's supposed to be, which is just pure experience, not judging anything whatsoever. Because the second that you judge something, then your brain starts to see it as either negative or positive. How is it going to help me in getting my desires? How is it going to help me with this or that? Your brain, we all have certain things that we want from life. So by being able to set aside judgment and just experience the world, then you can see it for how it truly is, rather than like, oh, that guy's just a jerk. Well, no, you just had an experience with him that like wasn't how it's supposed to be. So now your next interaction, your brain automatically is going to jump to, he's a jerk, because it doesn't want to process that information again. It takes the easy route. So that's kind of how things are going. But just understand that if you can be conscious and aware of how you're thinking and what you're thinking, then you can have more control over what you think in the future. But because reality takes place all in our minds, what you see is different than what someone else sees. Like a chef, if they're eating the same meal you are, they're going to be able to see a lot more. Someone who hears more than you, like that's just their disposition in life. Like they've just had more experience with that stuff. They're gonna be like, oh, did you hear that sound? No, I didn't. Your brain is filtering out stuff that theirs isn't. So that's just something to stay aware of. And if you visualize things a certain way, and if you start to create these own things in your mind, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So now you can increase your experience, and you can create new experiences in your mind, create new connections. And by doing that, you can become a totally new person. You can get rid of anxiety, you can get rid of stress, you can get rid of guilt and shame. You can become more confident, you can become a better artist, you can become a better piano player. Not by doing anything, but just imagining that you're doing something, because your brain doesn't know the difference. It's going to make the connections anyways. So I just encourage you guys to recognize that everything comes from inside. Nothing physical can satisfy your desires. We have unquenchable desires. They go on forever, but the world is scarce, and it can't fulfill everything. And as soon as we have one need that's met, then 100 more pop up, and it stays like that for the rest of your life. But once you recognize that your mind and your body is the most complex chemical factory in the world, and by changing your mind to, what's up, babe? To be happy with just the simple things, and be happy with just experiencing life, just experiencing whatever's going on in the present moment, like, you can physically change your brain to think that just by visualizing and changing those patterns that fire over and over and over. So if you can do that, then all of a sudden you're happy all the time, because that's what your brain knows now. That's how it fires. That's how it works. So I just encourage you guys, if you're dealing with stuff that is making you anxious, stressed, feeling guilty, imagine it being totally okay. Imagine that it's not a problem. Imagine yourself being the way that you want to be. If you can't imagine a life like that, then you're never going to have that in reality. And no one's gonna get mad at you for imagining stuff how you want. If you're going to bed, play out your perfect life. Play out the way you wish you were. Play out experiences that you had that day that, oh, this is the way I wish they would have gone. This is the way I wish this would have happened 10 years ago. This is what I wish happens tomorrow. Just imagine yourself doing everything just the way you would want. And your brain will say, oh, okay, I guess this is how I am. I guess this is how I work. So do it. Peace out, y'all. Have a nice one.